So, I guess I'm gonna turn the floor over to you just for a little minute and just tell us a little bit about what Honey Bear Farms and stuff. What do y'all do there? And let you tell us a little bit about that stuff. I know there's this classes and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah,
And then
yeah.
we'll go into some questions we got for you and like 11 things people to miss of bees.
Absolutely.
We'll go into a little of that, but I'll let you explain your business and and how it all works and all
Cool.
that good
Yeah,
stuff.
that'd be great. Well, I'll just start talking
And we got some questions. We'll just pop in there. Give you
yeah.
some
So
questions.
so I'm the guy that teaches classes. So once I start talking, I don't shut up. So
Oh, you're all right.
so you guys just let me know.
Have at it, buddy.
So Honey Bear Farms is really an outreach for my wife and I wanting to kind of pay back a little bit. We got started with bees, and we have an autistic child, and he came home one day and he said, I want to sell honey. I want to make money selling honey. And he's got that commerce gene that really just clicks with him. And anything that thinks he can make a buck on it, he's just all for it. Right? He
Smart
doesn't
kid.
necessarily understand that there's a lot of work that behind the scenes to make this actual honey. And Mom and I knew that, and immediately, and we're like, no, we're not going to do this. That's a lot of effort, and I certainly don't want to get stung, right?
Right.
So we poo-pooed that idea for a while, but he was persistent, and so it wasn't too long. Do you guys know that there's this thing called the internet?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Yeah, you heard of that before?
I've heard of it.
I heard of it.
Yeah, well, I found out that I could actually, there's this thing called Google on the internet, and so I punched in, honeybees, and within 15 minutes, I was convinced that the honeybees have a real serious issue, not only here in Kentucky, and not just in our country, but around the planet, in that we're losing a lot of honeybees, and honeybees are extremely important to the survival
Yes, they are.
of species
Yes,
on
they
our
are.
of all species on our planet. And so 15 minutes, I'm telling you, 15 minutes, and I became convinced that I can do something to help the honeybees. And so my wife and I were taking a trip soon after over to North Carolina, visiting my mom. And hi, Mom. I know you're not watching this, but I'm going to say hi, Mom, anyway. And we were in the little hippie town called Weaverville. And I affectionately refer to it as Hippie Town because it was in the middle of the summer, and we walked in there, and it was all outdoor cafes, and everybody's wearing tank tops and Birkenstocks, and kind of peace, love, goodwill, and like, well, this is a cool little place to be. And so we hung out there for a while, and on the way out of town, I saw a little store, and so I asked my wife if I could pull in, and she said sure. She didn't really care because she was reading a book at that point. She once we get in the truck, she's done. So I pull in, and she looks up, and she says, "What are you doing?"
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "Well, it's a bee store. I kind of want to go inside. This is the first intentional act of becoming a beekeeper that we've made since I, read the little thing on the internet." And she said, "Well, sure, let's go." She's all gung ho. So we go in there, and 2 hours later we walk out and we're beekeepers. We got everything we need but the bees, and we already know how to find them. So that was about 7 years ago, and so that's how we got started. And it wasn't too far into it that we wanted to try to help others, and so we started teaching some seminars over and around Kentucky, and that was somewhat successful. We conducted several seminars around the state, and we decided it would be a lot easier if we had somewhere that we could actually teach, and maybe people would come to us, instead of us trying to go around the country, around the state, and do this. And so, eventually, we started a little store, a little beekeeping store, and that's called the Honey Depot, and it's in Louisville, Kentucky, and we've become the bee store for Louisville, and so that is now going on 4 years now. And so we just celebrated our second anniversary at the Honey Depot. So we're on our third year of that location there in just outside of Fisherville on Taylorsville Road. So we conduct classes. Mm-hmm. We teach people how to become beekeepers. We actually have a class tomorrow morning. We host the Louisville Bee School. We do one in the spring and one in the fall. We have, of course, all the supplies and all the equipment, including honeybees, for the beekeepers to get started and to maintain their hobby or their passion. Even if it becomes commercial. And then we also we have a bee store there that sells a lot of honey, all these products up here that you see. And We also have some Amish products, some jams and jellies, and some homemade crafts and things of that nature that we try to help out different communities. We actually sell products from 5 different Amish communities around the state. So good folks and so forth. So that's kind of a little bit about us. The farm, Honey Bear Farms, is the name of the farm, and then the Honey Depot is just one of our outreaches. That's at the actual bee store, but we do a couple other things as well. So we have a little store there, and that's where we keep our bees. I'm actually in partnership with a couple other guys, and they actually have close to 1,400 hives, and that's where we get most of our honey. But we get honey from all around the state and in some areas around the region. And so we pull it in and we bottle it up special and let folks know where it came from. And so you can walk in and you can get some Hoosier honey. You can get some from up in Jasper, Indiana. We can get some Appalachian honey from over in the hills.
Now on that, I will ask this question because it's another question I have on allergies.
Sure.
Have you heard anything about the allergies with a certain area of where your honey is?
Absolutely. So honey, there's
Is that
two.
true?
Yeah, absolutely. There's 2 things going on with what I call real honey.
Mm-hmm.
Now I don't want to go into a lecture here, but it's real important for folks to understand that there's real honey and then there's honey that's not real.
Store-bought.
It's been adulterated in some way. It has been cut with other things. Maybe it's rice syrup or maybe it's corn syrup or something like this. Maybe it's been pasteurized, which means it's been heated for a period of time and the pollen has now been killed. So that's not what we have. We have what's called raw honey. It's unfiltered, it's unpasteurized. It's right out of the hive. We just filter it or actually strain it for the bee parts, and then we put it in a bottle. So there's a difference between real honey and unreal honey. Real honey has 2 natural things that are occurring that are beneficially to you. One is a naturally occurring hydrogen peroxide.
It's antiseptic, ain't it?
It absolutely has many antibacterial type things that are going on that will help you with that. And it's just, and so people that eat a teaspoon of honey every morning and they swear it works, well, it probably is working on some level because it helps your body heal. You can actually take honey, if you have a scrape, and you can rub honey on it, and it'll
It's got to
probably
be real honey, though, right?
Got to be real honey.
Yeah.
It's got to be real honey, and it'll actually heal quicker than or as good possibly than if you were to put some of that mycetration or whatever else
like
you
that.
put on there, right? So we caution people, you may not want to go outside with that because now you're going to attract some bees
Bugs.
and other things. But naturally occurring hydrogen peroxide inside the honey is really good for you. The second thing are the benefits for your allergies. Because real honey is made with local pollen and local nectar, that will over time help your immune system. It'll help strengthen your immune system, and you can build up a resistance. It's the air that we're breathing is what's contained in the pollen and the nectar that the bees are making their honey with. Now it's not now we have to qualify that a little bit. What is local honey? Local honey is we sometimes refer to it. There's neighborhood honey, there's local honey, there's regional honey, there's domestic honey, and then you have imported honey. Now 76% of all of the honey consumed in our country, 76%
It's probably not from here.
is imported.
Wow.
76% is imported. I mean, I tell people that and they're like, "You're kidding me." I'm like, no, I'm not kidding you. So we make very little honey. All the beekeepers and everything, there's very little honey do we actually make on the grand scheme of things. So neighborhood honey is honey that's literally made close to your house. And unless you live out in the country where there's a big beekeeper, you have little beekeepers that are hobbyists in your neighborhood, and they might have as many as 5 hives or something like that. Well, if they're fortunate on a good year, they might have 100 or 200 pounds of honey. Well, that's usually gone within 2 weeks.
Right.
So if you want neighborhood honey, you need to get on their list, with your neighbor beekeeper and say, "Hey, I want some of your honey when you get it in June or July."
So it's that quick.
And it's going to go quick. So neighborhood honey is usually only available at a very short time. But if you can get it, go for it. I mean, that's awesome.
And I'm sure the price is probably quite a bit
Well,
higher.
most people don't even charge for their honey.
Really?
You know, when you're at that level, you know, because you're having fun with it, right?
Yeah. You're
You know,
learning on that scale.
And you're just trying to pay back, and you're so proud of your honey. You're just like, hey man, you want some of my honey? This is great
Let's
stuff.
try it. Yeah.
You know, so
Yeah.
and they don't really realize the benefit that they have. Now, local honey is actually 50 to 100 miles out. Okay, and that's the air that we're breathing. You know, it's the wind currents are blowing it around, the different pollen and so forth. And like we're in the Ohio Valley here, the lower part of the Ohio Valley.
So everything sucks in here.
Yeah, it just kind of stays right here, right? So and that's what we try to sell in the store is local honey, which is really about 50 to 100 miles out. And then what you have regional honey. Regional is maybe 3 or 4 states. Okay, so Kentucky, Indiana, Ohio, that kind of area. Okay, and then you have domestic honey, which is
Made
in our
here.
country.
Yeah.
It's made in the States. And then you have the imported honey, which comes in. Now, the imported honey, unfortunately, we don't have a lot of control on that because there's so much of it that comes in. They can't test everything to see if it's been adulterated or not. But a lot of it has been. Back in 2015, they were testing some honey from China, and it was found to be adulterated. And so they put a ban on China honey. Well, within 2 years, the other states in the Pacific Rim surrounding China were importing almost the same amount that China was banned. And those of us in the beekeeping industry know that, wait a second, you don't build an industry that large in 2 years. That just doesn't happen. So some of that honey is probably still coming into the country. And so what we caution people to do is if you're trying to be intentional about purchasing your honey, make sure you read your labels and make sure that if it says distributed by or produced by, look at where they're from. Okay. And if they're a local beekeeper, then there's a pretty good chance
That's probably real.
that you've got good stuff. Or go down to your local farmer's market, right? Go down to your local farmer's market, and a lot of people know the guy that's sitting down there on Saturday mornings and sells his honey. Well, he's probably only going to be able to do that for a month or two, and then he's out.
Yeah.
So try to help him out, buy his local honey, but that would actually be neighborhood honey. But if you see honey that says, packaged by or something like that, somebody in Kansas City, right? You have no idea where that honey has come from.
Mm-hmm.
If you go to Walmart or go to Kroger, and here's the other thing to kind of a test, kind of a red flag. If you're buying honey retail at less than $8 a pound, there's a good chance it's not domestic.
Well,
honey.
that and shouldn't it have like if it says ingredients on it,
Yeah,
that
there
would be
shouldn't
like
anything in it.
Yeah,
That's
it should
right.
just be honey, right?
It should be just
I mean,
honey.
ingredients, they may have to put that on there for a certain thing, but it should say honey.
Well, if we add something to it, like our bee
Yeah.
venom here, anytime you add something to honey, then you've got to list what the ingredients are.
Yeah.
But if it's just regular honey,
But just
no,
if you
there's
go in there, and
just regular honey.
just a grocery store or something, and you grab the little bear that looks like honey,
Sure.
the little honey bear or whatever, and you flip it around the back of it, and it just says ingredients, sugar, this and that, and all this other stuff. It's not honey.
No, that's been cut. You see, that's been adulterated. Yeah.
So
Yeah, and they do that because they're trying to have a consistent product and enhance the shelf life and so forth. But that's not the good stuff.
So McDonald's is probably not real honey, I would say,
Probably.
because it says 100% honey on there or whatever.
Yeah,
But it's probably not. I would
it's-
assume it's probably not.
Yeah, and so if when you're buying honey, again, it cost me, by the time I'm selling my honey, I'm selling it wholesale at around $6 or $7.
Mm-hmm.
So so the distributor has to get his cut, and the retailer has to get his cut. So my honey is typically $12 and up retail.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and that's about average for domestic honey on a retail level. But if you're looking at honey that's being literally sold retail at $7 a pound, then you got to question, where did that come from? So honey is imported at less than $2 a pound. And so then the numbers work. The commerce of honey works at that point because you got, you double it and then you add 35%, and then you just keep going up, and you say, yeah, okay, well, everybody was making money at $7.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, BJ, I wouldn't trust China honey either.
While we're on the topic of
Sure.
location, What do you think the best area of the world is to produce honey?
Oh man. So honey, if here's the thing about becoming a beekeeper, you have to decide what do you want to do with your bees. You know, you can make honey, or you can make other bees, or you can make queens, or you can make products like propolis, which is a substance inside the hive, or even royal jelly. So if your purpose is to make honey, then you want to locate your hives where they have an availability of forage very nearby. So that's water, that's pollen, and that's nectar. And so you want there to be as much as possible. So the further south you go, possibly even in the tropics, you know, you're going to have more availability of forage.
So say if like, you know, say if I wanted to go out and start my own hive, how long would it take to get honey? You know, your first batch of honey.
So normally, you know, you get a batch of bees, and you can start with either what's called a package of bees, or you can start with what's called a nuke. It stands for a nucleus colony. It's like a little small hive. And normally you get honey your second year. You may get lucky and get it your first year. This year, however, we're actually selling what's called a 10-frame single. It's like buying a mature hive. And with that, you will most likely get honey your first year.
Okay.
Yeah, so our hives around the road here on Taylorsville Road, you know, last year we averaged more than 100 pounds a hive.
Wow.
Yeah, which is really strong because the state average is 48 here in Kentucky. And Kentucky is not a very strong producer of honey. We're somewhere near the lower third, actually. Some places like Michigan and Florida, you know, they're upwards around 100 pounds a hive on the average.
Okay.
On the average. So it just depends on where you are. I can tell you that folks that have a really really strong hives, you have to have a lot of bees, and they have to be located where there's forage. So you can't make a lot of honey. You can make some honey, but not a lot of honey until you get somewhere around 50 to 60 to 70,000 bees. It's what we call a super hive. That is normally in the third year. Okay, and if you manage it properly, again, like we do here, you know, you can actually get quite a bit of honey out of your hive.
Okay.
BJ wants to know, how do you know if it's healthy? BJ, that really opens up a whole thing for me as the educator. Healthy, you know, are we talking about varroa mites? Are we talking about, you know, healthy with the food source, or are they healthy coming in, you know, out of winter? Several different questions there, but most people, when they're thinking about healthy, they want to know if it's been infected with varroa mites or some other pest. And so we have to
basically like a flea or something like that. For
yeah,
a
kind of
bee
so.
or
It's
something?
like a parasite, and they've come in from northern Europe, and they've at this point pretty much infected bees all around the planet. And so you have to treat them. You just can't leave them alone out there. You have to be proactive, and you have to treat them. And so if you are proactive and you do treat your bees, if you medicate them in different ways, then you can keep the varroa mites at a level where the bees will multiply and will be healthy. If you don't do that, oftentimes, you know, you come out of the winter and you're wanting to know where your bees are. Maybe they've absconded from the hive, they've gone. Maybe they're just dead. You know, there's different things could happen over the winter. Almost all of them, not all, but most all of them can be traced back to that you had an infestation of varroa mites. And so you have to treat your bees and make sure that they are healthy. Yeah, I hear BJ is saying nobody was taking care of these bees that he found. You know, so you have what's called a mite bomb, you know, if you're not careful. So you need to test your bees, and there's different ways you can test to see if they've been infected and to what extent they have. And based on the test results, then you treat them, you medicate them accordingly. And so you may have to do a really heavy treatment, or you may do a light treatment.
It's kind of like I kept fish. I used to own a fish store, and this is like if ick gets in there, it's about the same premise, I guess. You got to slowly do it to them, and not, I guess, all at once. I guess, I'm assuming.
Yeah, that's
You can
right.
over medicate them, and it could kill them.
Well, that's right. If you over medicate, then it's too much. So, you know, I try to let people realize, or try to ask them to realize that becoming a beekeeper means that you're becoming a farmer and with livestock. you have live animals that you are now becoming responsible
That's
for.
very true. Yes.
Yeah.
And it is now your responsibility to steward. You're now the steward for these animals, and we need to take care of them. And if you don't, then you're responsible for that, right? So
And I know something we had talked about earlier. I think we'd all mentioned it about bees, on a decline, like deaths. Like there was just random a bunch of them. I know it's kind of, you said it's came up a little bit now. It's not as bad as it was.
yeah,
But is it that vermites or whatever? Is
yeah,
that
the
what they're-
varroa mites.
Varroa mites.
Yeah, varroa is a VARROA, varroa.
Varroa mites.
So, there's, back from 2008 to 2012, we lost about 50% of our bees around the planet.
Wow.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
And when you think about 1 out of every 3 bites of food we eat require pollination,
Yeah.
and honeybees are the number one
Right.
pollinator
Yeah,
on
people
the
don't
planet.
think about
Yeah.
that when you go to the
Yeah.
store and you get lettuce and you get all that stuff.
It's like, man,
that.
we got a problem.
Yeah.
We got a problem. Do you guys know Albert Einstein?
Yeah.
I think I've heard of him. Think so.
Yeah, well, most people have. And so he was asked, what would happen without the honeybee? And he thought about it, and he said, I give us 6 years. Because you look at the compounded
It
effect.
makes sense. It does.
Yeah. So if we lose the honeybees, then 1/3 of all of the plants that require pollination are immediately gone. As soon as they die out, there's not going to be any reseeding. So 1/3 of our food supply goes away in 6 months. That means, but we haven't started dying out yet as a species. And so the remaining population of humanity and animals on the planet are now eating 1/3 less food. And so the compounded effect of that, it just, escalates.
Yeah, you got to think about like the
So-
people that have livestock that feed them.
Oh, yeah.
If it's not being pollinated, so it's just going to stem down.
6
from there.
years.
It's all-
6 years and we're out of
crazy.
food.
Yeah, it makes
So
sense.
it's a big problem.
But I
Big,
didn't realize
big,
it
huge
was.
problem.
I didn't realize it was 50%.
Yeah. Yeah. So
That's a lot.
Wow.
That's
it's a lot. It's a
worldwide.
lot.
is
Yeah,
it?
worldwide. So this thing
lot.
called colony collapse disorder, CCD. And CCD really consists of 3 things. One is, and there's no question, one is overuse of harmful pesticides and chemicals that hurt the bees, kill them. Okay, so there's no questioning that. It's widely used in industrial and commercial agricultural practices. And certain countries have banned certain chemicals, but then they're unbanned. Here in our country, there were chemicals that were banned for several years, and just last year they released the ban. Well, these things kill bees. All right, so it's very frustrating when that happens, but that's what's happening with herbicides and harmful chemicals. The second thing of the triad for colony collapse disorder are pests. So there's varroa mites, there's small hive beetles, there's wax moths, there's different types of diseases that have been introduced to the bees that they don't have a resistance to. And so the bees are trying to overcome that on their own. And as beekeepers, we can medicate that and we can help them out as stewards to the bees. The third level of the triad, or third leg of the triad for colony collapse disorder, we don't know what it is. We don't know what it is. You can walk up to a hive and the bees were there yesterday and they're gone today. And you can't relocate another hive into that equipment. The bees won't have anything to do with it. They won't stay.
So they have to go to their own original hive. They won't take over another hive.
They won't go into this hive where the bees just absconded from. I mean, you have to burn your hive.
Oh,
And so it's very weird.
territorial thing, I assume. I guess.
Sure. Yeah, and they can't figure out why. They don't know why. And so that's the third leg of the triad. That part of colony collapse disorder is not as prevalent today as it was just 4 to 5 years ago. It still happens. We had one happen to us here recently, but it doesn't happen too often. Okay, it used to be fairly. Now you can but you can pretty much say, well, you can trace it back to a particular disease or something else going on, but there for a long time it was very, very common. So that's what's called colony collapse disorder, and that as a whole has been attributed to the loss of bees. The good news is that the bees are ramping back up.
That is good.
They are ramping up, and that's because of folks like you guys and the folks out here
Yeah.
that are becoming beekeepers. And
Which leads me on to my next thing is 11 things that I'd found. And you said
Cool.
you was interested
Let's
in
do it.
this. The myths about bees. And I knew a few of them.
oh, they're not
But-
myths. There's a part truth and everything.
Part truth,
I got
yeah.
I got a few questions. You want me to ask those before this, or
Yeah, I mean, if it pertained to something you don't.
they pertain to what we were just talking about?
Okay,
No.
go ahead.
I was gonna ask first, what goes into like a bee medication? Like, how does that work?
Well, so it's like anything. They've decided what, they've identified a particular disease, and then they've identified a particular way to medicate it, and so they put that in a food supplement, or maybe it's a spray. There's this thing called oxalic acid, which is a naturally occurring ingredient in the wild, and you can find it on different things, and it's used in agricultural practices. Well, that applied in a particular way is like a 95% kill rate for these varroa mites. And so they're coming up with different ways. That's as an example of a particular treatment. So they're constantly studying this, and they're looking at it. They has been the labs that are studying, entomology labs around the country, who are really into this and are trying to help out the beekeeping industry. Beekeeping industry worldwide is $18 billion. And so it's a large enough industry where they're spending quite a bit of money in research to try to figure out what's going on and to help our bees.
Got a question up here, I think. BJ again.
So BJ's got him a box of bees that's been untouched for a while, and he's asking me a question about what should he do with it. What you need to do is get it tested for varroa mites and for other diseases. We have some kits at the store. You can come by and we'll show you how to use it. If you don't want to do it, we can get a beekeeper to come out and do it for you. But definitely, if it's been untouched for several years, it's become a feral hive, which is a wild bees, and it's been untreated, and it's probably become a mite bomb at this point. So there are very few instances where bees in North America can survive untreated. There are ways to do it, but it takes managed practice over years without any influx of other bees from around them. And that's probably not happened here with BJ's hive. So give us a call at the store. We'd be glad to walk you through it.
All right. Then my next question was, it's kind of the same thing as my third question is, how big have you seen a beehive, and what is it? What are they made out of? Like, what is it? What is the material?
So the beehive itself, if you think about there's natural beehives and then there's man-made beehives.
Right.
Natural beehives are typically in a hollow cavity of a tree.
Right.
All right. So, and they're usually vertical, because the trees are vertical. So the bees from bottom to top, they'll have their brood, which is the eggs, the babies, are in the bottom. And then they'll have their food stores, which are kind of in the middle. And then they'll have their surplus honey stores, which is also food, but it's surplus, will be at the very top. And then they'll just keep adding honey to the top as they go. So man-made hives, we try to do the same thing. And that's why most of them are vertical. Now, I know there's some horizontal hives, but most of the hives are vertical. And it's intentional because we're trying to mimic the inside of that tree. Same hollow cavity from bottom to top.
Makes sense.
Sure. And
Yeah, we froze.
Froze.
Again, go ahead, you can talk on that.
Yeah, I think we're still live.
We're
First.
still live talking. I don't
Talking, it's
believe
just-
that it's
still alive. That's good.
Let me
The
get it
screen
fixed.
is the
Well, see, my
slide's
my
working.
screen isn't frozen, but your all's is.
Oh, that's
yeah,
what it
it's
is.
the
Okay.
camera. Let me fix it.
Yeah.
We can go ahead and keep talking though.
So
They can still hear.
the man-made beehives are trying to mimic what's going on inside of a tree, and so now down in the tropics there's external hives, and around the world, but there's this thing called a Langstroth hive, which is what you guys have probably seen when you see beehives up on a distance of somebody's hill or whatever, even at our store. That's what's going on. It's a vertical hive, and those boxes can all be removed. You'll see there's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 boxes stacked on a hive, and they have frames inside them, and those frames are either filled with bee eggs, or bee food, or honey. And beekeepers are managing their hive. They're moving those boxes around strategically, try to figure out Do we need to remove them? Do we need to replace it with something else? Does it need to be treated? What have you?
All right. So the ones that you would see hanging from a tree, is that did they make that themselves?
Yeah. So what you're referring to is probably a swarm.
Okay.
Yeah. So you're just a bunch of bees hanging from a tree.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a swarm. So when you guys see a swarm, I want you to try to remember that swarm needs to be rescued, because a swarm only has 3 days to survive. Because when it leaves its home, and when you see it lighting on a fence post or a tree limb or wherever, it is resting until the scout bees find a new home. And as soon as the scout bees report back that they found a suitable new home, they're going to take off and they're going to go to that new home, and they're going to start building immediately. They're going to adapt new roles, new chores, new tasks, and they're going to start building honeycomb and collecting honey and collecting pollen and nectar for food. And they're going to start all over again. They only have 3 days to do that. And if it rains during that time, or if something happens and they don't make it to their new home, then they're probably going to starve. And I say 3 days because they can only carry so much food with them while they're in that swarm, while they're hanging on that tree, right? They only carry about 3 days of food with them. So it's really important that we rescue them, to put them in a managed hive and immediately feed them so that they can survive.
All right. And then my last question is, what's the biggest hive you've ever encountered?
Oh my. So we found a hive that was in somebody's house, and it was huge. It probably had, was probably a 10-foot section of rafters, and each one was probably 6 to 8 feet long. I mean, it was huge. It was possibly well over 100,000 bees in this hive.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how do you get those out? Like a vacuum?
You can use a vacuum. Yeah, absolutely. Whenever you're moving bees, you got to make sure that you remove the queen, because the bees aren't going to go anywhere without the queen. They're gonna smell her, and they're constantly going to be looking for her. And so if you get the queen and then you move the queen, they'll go where the queen goes.
Really?
Yeah. So that's what you're always trying to find, that queen. Spend the time finding the queen, capture her, and put her in a box or wherever you're trying to go with it. And then you can get all the other bees, whether you use a vacuum or you scoop them or different ways. And then once they'll follow the scent of their queen, they'll stay with their queen.
All right.
So is that something? Yeah. It was.
So out of all them bees, how can you tell which one is the queen?
So once you've seen a queen, you'll understand.
Okay.
She's visibly larger than the other bees. She's like sometimes as much as 2 times bigger than the other bees.
Okay.
Well, how does she get that big?
Yeah, that's
If
called
she- if
it's
she
a
starts
metamorphosis. It's really a cool thing. So when bees make a queen, they make a queen cell, and it's like the size of a peanut, and it's like an inch to inch and a half long. And they feed that queen royal jelly, which is a substance that the bees make inside the hive. And that royal jelly somehow causes a metamorphosis for that egg to become a queen. And the queen is noticeably different than the other bees in that she has pheromone glands, she has reproductive glands, her abdomen is visibly larger so that she can carry a large amount of semen so she can lay eggs. The queen is going to lay 1,500 eggs a day during the season.
How
Yeah,
long
she's
is their
gonna be
season?
busy. So usually about 6 to 8 months a year, depending on where they are. Yep. Around here, it's usually from late February to October, and she'll be laying eggs that entire time.
It's a lot of babies.
Wow.
That's a lot of babies.
A lot of babies. So as you can see on the film, on the screen, you can see that she's easily 2 times bigger than that worker bee right next to her.
So you see what I guess they can't see it because it's not.
Oh,
on
I'm
his,
sorry.
But
I'm
no,
sorry.
but I was just kind of bringing.
that's
it up
for us, that they-
Yeah, well, just so we could get an idea.
Sure.
And,
sure.
if he gets it back going over here. Yeah, he's having some trouble.
Yeah.
So
So there are 3 kinds of bees.
he says, "My phone jacked up, or is it on your
It's
side?"
on our
It's
side.
on our side, BJ. You can still hear us talk, but the video is probably going to be messed up for just a few minutes. We're working on it. But if you do have questions, you can still listen along here.
And they actually protect her, right?
They do. They do. They do everything they can to protect their queen until they don't want to anymore, and then they replace her.
Wow.
It's tough life inside a queen and inside a hive. It's not a democracy. It is an autocracy. All right, it is autocratic. That you do exactly what the bee says to do, and if you don't, then you get kicked out. Until the queen loses favor, and if she becomes damaged, if she becomes, if she doesn't reproduce well, if she becomes sick, they'll immediately replace her.
Now, when you
Now,
say
they
replace-
kill- they
do-
kill
do
her?
They,
They
kill
will.
her, or they,
They
kick
will
her
either
out?
just stop feeding her, which means she'll die off in 3 or 4 days, and sometimes they will kill her.
Wow.
Sometimes they'll start a new queen cell, and when that new queen emerges, they will fight, and oftentimes the young queen, will kill the old queen.
Wow.
So how long does it take that the queen, like if they transfer like that, to be able to lay,
So it takes
Eggs.
about 5 weeks from start to finish.
for her to be able to lay the
Yes,
1,500?
yeah. It'll take her about 2.5 to 3 weeks to actually get hatched and everything, and then she's got to mature a little bit and strengthen, and then she'll fly off on what's called a virgin mating voyage, and she'll actually fly off to get mated, and then she'll come back, and it takes about anywhere from 3 to 7 days afterwards. She returns, she'll start laying eggs. So that process is could be 4 weeks. We normally count on 5 weeks.
May have to zoom out a hair, Patrick, then aim it towards Winton.
All right. So the first myth I have here, Joel, is all bees sting.
It's a myth.
Yeah.
So male bees don't even sting. They don't even have a stinger, right? Queen bees, of course, have a stinger, but they will very seldom use it except for another queen. The worker bees have the stinger, of course, but they're defensive. They're not necessarily aggressive. And of course, when they sting you, part of their anatomy physically falls off, and that process kills them. So it's suicide.
Wow.
So it goes on to the next myth. Honeybees can sting their victim repeatedly.
No, only the
No.
queen can do that.
Now, bumblebees, can they?
Yeah,
can?
yeah. So
But honeybees, I
wasps
think it's
and
confusing.
yellow jackets and hornets can sting you repeatedly, whereas a honeybee, the little worker bee, is only going to sting you once, and then she's dead.
Yeah, I think that's the logic. I think where they're getting mixed up on is the
That's right.
honeybee and
That's right.
And
Honeybees are
bumblebee or
defensive. They're defending their
jacket.
home, whereas the wasp and yellow jackets and hornets are aggressive. They'll just come after you because they're mean.
yeah. Now, do they attack bees?
They do. They'll kill them. They're carnivores. They'll eat bees.
Wow.
Myth 3: wasp or bees. Well, we pretty much solved that one.
There you go.
Wasp is not a bee.
Yeah, so wasps do not have any hair on their body, and so they do not provide any pollination at all. They're carnivores, whereas the little bees are the pollinators. They're non-aggressive, and except for the Africanized bees, and that's a good question. We can talk about that. But the little honeybees are defensive. They're not aggressive at all.
Okay, so myth 4: you can avoid bee stings by spraying the nest with water. Do not try this. Water will not affect the bee's nest. Likely, it just irritate the bees and cause them to.
Yeah, there are times that you might want to mist your beehives, but if you're doing it just because you try not to get stung, you're going to be in for a hurt.
Well, I know you always seen the old shows where they're like, "Oh, I'm getting stung," and they start spraying them.
Yeah, that just pisses them off.
Now, when you smoke them, that actually keeps them calm.
That's right. Now you're talking. So if you're going to smoke a bees, you're doing two things. It's a combination of the two. One is they think there's a fire,
Okay.
just like any instinctual thing. So when there's a fire,
Stay low.
the bees eat a lot of honey because they're getting ready to leave the nest. Okay, they got to go find another home. So they eat a lot of honey. Eating a lot of honey, they become lethargic. And they're less likely to sting you when they're like fat and happy. So
So they're honey drunk.
they're honey drunk.
So they're,
Absolutely.
they're basically getting
Yeah.
high off honey.
There you go.
There
There
you
you go. But the main thing is that the smoke is going to mask the pheromone. The attack pheromone smells like rotten bananas. Yeah, and that the bees will smell that. They'll spray that inside the hive if they feel like they're under attack. And then whereas you had very few bees that were assigned the task of being guardians, once they smell that attack pheromone, all bees will sting if they smell it. Okay, and you're going to ask me how at some point how often I get stung, and I'm going to. Well, that's a good comment we're going to make in just a little bit. But when you use that smoke, the smoke helps to mask that attack pheromone, and so they get confused and they're less likely to sting you.
Okay.
So once the smoke wears off, it dissipates. Here they come.
All right, we'll go ahead and jump into it. How many times have you been stung, man? Because I was asking earlier. I know that you've probably been stung a lot.
Yeah. So during the season when we're working our bees on a regular basis, I'll probably get stung 20 times a week.
Good.
But it's not working the bees, because I dress up and I wear my bee clothes from head to toe, and so I don't get stung when I'm actually in the bee yard. Very seldom does that happen. I get stung when I'm back at the barn, and it's 30 minutes later, and I'm not even in the bee yard messing with the bees at all. Yet they sprayed me at some point. And so a little worker bee is coming home and she smells me. She pops me because she smelled me. She smelled the attack pheromone was still lingering around on me. And she comes over here and pops me, and I'm like, oh, I wish you wouldn't have done that. You just killed yourself, for no reason at all. But it's an instinctual kind of thing. And so that's when I get stung most often. It's not actually working the bees. It's when I'm back, at the
when you're not around them.
not around them. That's
So
right, yeah.
so when they smell this attack pheromone, they are going to sting you because they are basically sacrificing themselves to protect their queen. Is that like essentially what they're doing?
Yeah, they are. So bees are going to defend their hive, their home, and think of it like this. Think of it as though this is our home right here, and we've got our food is kept over here, and a couple of refrigerators, and we've got a roof, and we got some furniture, and we're all kind of hanging out in here, right? So what if the hand of God were to reach down and just rip this roof right off, and then another hand comes down and starts bumping us around and takes our food out of the fridge and everything? I mean, that's rather disruptive, right? That's really disruptive. And so that's what happens when we get inside a beehive. And so the bees get defensive of that. And it's often said that every time we inspect a hive, we disrupt them for up to 3 days. They don't get back to normal for up to 3 days. And so I coach our beekeepers in classes. I make sure that everybody understands that, yes, we need to inspect our hives on a regular basis, but when we do it, we need to have a purpose in mind. We need to know what that purpose is. And when we accomplish that purpose, we get out. We make notes about red flags or whatever, and then we address those the next time we come to the hive. We don't, so very seldom are we inside a hive for more than 5 minutes. So people ask me all the time, well, how long does it take to work your bees? Well, about 5 minutes a week. It doesn't take very long. Now, if you got 100 hives, of course, well, that can add up, but it doesn't take very long at all, because you're not just going to open your hive and just stand around and, for 30 or 40 minutes. You just don't do that. You get in, you get out.
Gotcha. And I guess going on to the next myth, that all bees produce honey. I don't know that that's true.
It is not. So honeybees are called honeybees because they make honey, but there's like 4,800. I think is it 4,800 species of bees? Let's just say there's 4,800.
Yeah, let's say.
let's
I'm
go with it.
guaranteeing you're probably right.
Wow,
I have no idea.
Wow.
I'm sure everybody's out there Googling it right now. Like,
I was gonna say I don't know.
yeah. So
but
there's a bunch, right?
I'm sure there's a
very
lot.
few of them are actually honeybees.
All right. So myth number 6: bees are hard workers.
So I'm in tune with the honeybees, and I can tell you that the worker bees are hard workers. But that's not all bees. That's just the worker bees, that are honey producers. That's not all the bees.
Okay.
So, species of bees.
Here we go.
There is 4,000 in the United States.
Okay.
Worldwide, there is 20,000.
20,000. Yeah.
Good gosh.
Yeah. Crazy.
Okay. Myth number 7: adult bees live a long time.
No, they don't. So the worker bees are only going to live 6 to 8 weeks on average. The male bees, which are the drones, they may live up to possibly 6 months at a time, and then the queen bee, if she's successful, she may survive as long as 3 years, occasionally longer than that. Most of the time, the queens are only going to live about 1.5 to 2 years, and then something will happen and they'll replace her, or the beekeeper replaces her intentionally.
Okay. Joe, you want to take myth 8 there?
Yeah, bees won't sting at night. I know that's a myth.
That's got to be fake.
Yeah. So here's the thing. So bees don't like flying at night. All right. They come home at dusk. Whatever foragers have been out doing their thing, everybody comes home, and by the time it gets dark outside, within just a few minutes, all the bees are inside the hive, and they'll stay there until the next morning. If you come by and you knock that hive, and they start, and you release them, they're coming after you.
Yeah.
I mean, that
It
is
doesn't
some
matter
upset
anytime.
bees.
Yeah.
No, they're going to fly and they're going to sting you.
So do they
like,
not
oh, yeah.
fly at night because of sight? Issues, I guess.
You know,
Or is that just nobody really knows?
It's usually not warm enough.
Okay.
Bees have this thing with the sunshine, and they like the feel of the warmth of the sunshine, and maybe it's the gamma rays. You know, I don't know exactly what it is, but the bees don't necessarily like to fly around when it's cloudy and when it's stormy. They don't like that. If there's a lot of wind, they will fly, but they prefer not to. They will, of course, have to and go get their food or whatever. But not the entire hive. They'll kind of chill and stay at home, and then at nighttime they all come inside. You know, now they don't necessarily go to sleep, right? They don't go to sleep, but they do come inside and rest. And then the next morning, when it warms up, you see them taking off again.
Okay. So on number 9, it says most bees live in hives. I know not every one of them do.
Well, that's right, and the honeybees, of course, do. Because they're a hive mentality. You know, there's 50, 60, 70,000 bees that live in a hive. But there are solitary bees that don't. You know, carpenter bees, bumblebees,
Like
things
sweat,
like
like sweat bees.
this. Sweat bees.
Sweat
yeah.
bees, wood bees, you know, like you said, carpenter bees, wood bees. you
So
know.
is a sweat bee, is that a pollinator?
It is not.
It's not.
No, they're just irritating.
Yeah, they are. Just aggravating.
Now let's talk about pollination. They are in the fact that they're pollinating every time they get nectar, but are they a good pollinator? That would be the real question there, because the act of pollination is not an intentional thing with the honeybee. So she's covered with hair, and from head to toe she's got hair on her body, and when she lands on a flower petal, you know, she's trying to get the nectar that's inside the little stamina of the flower. The nectar is inside that little tulip-looking thing that's in the middle. So she's trying to stick her tongue down in there to get the nectar. Well, while she's doing that, she's crawling around on the flower petal, and that's where the pollen is, on the flower petal, and it collects on her hair. And then when when it gets too much for her, she just pushes it back to what's called pollen sacs that are on her rear legs. She's got 3 sets of legs, and she pushes it back to her rear legs, and she just kind of stores it back there. And so she doesn't do that, you know, intentionally. It's just something that happens as she's walking around from flower to flower to flower, collecting nectar. She's also collecting pollen. And when she goes to the next flower, some of it falls off.
Spreading.
And that's pollination.
Kind of like spreading it. Yeah. It's
kinda
like
like
a
spreading
bird.
it.
Birds do it
Yeah.
unintentionally too.
That's
you know.
right. So the sweat bee does pollinate.
Just not very good.
It's just not very good. Yeah.
Okay. Joe, do you want to take this next one? Myth 10.
If you rid your lawn of dandelions and flowers, will it keep bees away?
Well, yeah, because they love dandelions and flowers. So, you know, in a perfect honeybee world, none of us would cut our lawns lower than about 1.5 feet. You know, so that all the clover and the dandelions would all continue to bloom.
Right.
You know, but we don't do that, of course. I mean, even myself. I mean, my wife asked me to keep the lawn cut, you know, pretty short, and so we do that because, well, it looks better, right? It just, you know, and our neighbors expect that of us. But in if we were a honeybee, though, we would say, no, you need to let that grow. You know, clover, a lot of naturally occurring white and red clover out there. You know, they don't flower until they're 12 to 18 inches up. And they don't grow much higher than that, but you have to let them mature to that point. And so, I wish we didn't cut our lawns like we did, but like we do, but most of us do. So, Even out in the country, you ever heard
Yeah.
of this thing called a bush hog?
Oh yeah.
Well, there again, if we would let our fields grow to about 1.5 feet tall, the bees would be much better off. But most of us don't do that. So
No, and like there's actually one right down the road from your the bee place, the habitation area
For the butterflies.
Yes.
right.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's not ours, by the way. We would love to assume responsibility of that, but nobody has asked us to. And
Has that been done yet for bees?
it's not for bees necessarily. I think they've got a lot of
No, they're doing it for the butterflies.
milkweed up there. I think it's mainly for butterflies, based on what we can tell. But that's fine. I mean, that's great. That's helping out the butterflies. So
I just wondered if anybody had done something like that with all the flowers and stuff for bees. I don't know.
Yeah, you can plant pollinator habitats different places. You can actually get grants to do it on a limited basis. You'll see this upcoming year as you drive by the Honey Depot that the entire front lawn is going to become a pollinator habitat. It's going to be yellow and white and blue. And, probably we'll plant everything in late March. So by the first week or two of May, you should start seeing some color.
Wow.
And it's just going to be beautiful. And so, by probably for about a period of 4 to 5 months, it'll be gorgeous, and it'll be native wildflowers, so they'll continue to propagate, and so they'll come back stronger and stronger every year.
All right. I guess moving on to our last myth here, and then I guess we'll get into some of this tasting of this honeys and stuff. Sealing up a hole in a wall where bees are nesting, it will kill the bees inside.
So it could. Bees have to have an escape. They have to be able to go out and find, food and water. They have to have cleansing flights, which are poop flights. What comes in has to go out. So they have to have a way, an ingress and an egress to leave. And if you close that up, then they will die.
So they won't try to find any way out there. I guess, like I said, something about on here like wood and drywall. I guess it depends on what kind of bee too.
Right. Yeah.
That they've been known to go through drywall and stuff. I don't
Well,
know. A honeybee could do that, could they?
Yeah. So honeybees really aren't going to do that. But there are other bees that possibly
That
would.
would.
Yeah. So when we get calls, we had over 100 calls last year, and we'll probably get more of that this year about people wanting us to come rescue a swarm.
It's not
and-
honeybees. Or,
Well, sometimes they are, sometimes they're not. But sometimes we get calls though when it's an extraction, like the example is here, and we literally have to, remove the bees from inside of a structure, and then we have to repair the structure. So it requires not only a beekeeper, but it requires a contractor to actually do that, because you're literally removing building materials and then you're putting it back up. So
yeah. All right. Well, does anybody else have any other questions for him?
I was just gonna ask, on your website, it talks about it gives you the starter kit for beekeeping, and then it said the 10. I can't remember. It's 10.
10 frame.
Yeah, the 10 frame.
Yeah,
Is
10 frame nuke.
Do you actually provide the bees, or do people have to find that themselves?
Yeah, no. When you get the starter kit, you get the hive, you get the bees, you get the jacket, and you get the tools.
Also, that comes the beekeeping starter kit comes with that.
Yep.
Or no?
Yep,
So
it
it's
comes
the whole
with it.
complete. So if you bought that, if you can go on your website and you bought the complete beekeeping starter kit,
Yeah.
you could start keeping.
Absolutely, and it includes the education subscription. So you get all 22 classes in both bee schools, and that's why we intentionally tried to identify what is it that new beekeepers need, and we put it all in one package and gave it a hell of a price and said, here it is. It's literally half price. So
Well, because like I said, with any business, it's learning the screw ups.
that's right.
And if you can give them hey, look, we've done this. Didn't work. That's what I always tell people. Anything I was like, hey, don't do it that way. I've done that.
Yeah.
I'm like, it don't work. Or something like that. So that's basically that comes along with.
It sure does.
the
Yeah,
classes,
and
so.
tomorrow morning we're
that's really
actually
cool.
talking about beekeeping blunders at our class, first year blunders. So it's going to be a lot of fun. But yeah, so the starter kit, you get your bees, you get the hive, you get the jacket, and you get the tools, and you get the education subscription, which includes both the 11 beginning classes, the 11 intermediate classes, and registration for both of the B schools.
Okay. I do have a couple more questions Patrick had over here. I got a few of them on here. So what months do bees make honey? I'm assuming probably in the warmer months, not in the winter.
Well, that's right. So we have to have what's called a honey flow in order to make honey. And a honey flow is when there's an abundance of three things: pollen, nectar, and water. All right. So oftentimes they can find the water, or sometimes they can find the pollen, but you got to have all three. Around the Kentuckiana area, that's typically between mid-April to mid-June. There's about an 8-week honey flow here in the Louisville area. And during that time, if you've got a good hive and they're positioned well where they can find their forage sources, they can make a lot of honey during that time. Come July, the pollen dries up or the nectar dries up in their immediate source or their immediate flowers or what have you. And so unless you've planted something nearby, there may not be adequate supplies. And so the honey flow goes away and most bees stop making honey. All right. Now, and then it starts again sometime around September. Another honey flow occurs here in the Kentuckiana area. So if you've planted pollinator habitat nearby, then the bees have an advantage because now they have an available food supply possibly all summer and all fall, and they can keep making honey. So it's the product of having the availability of the pollen and the nectar is what they need.
Okay. I guess the next two, kind of go hand in hand. So how much honey do you get from a hive?
Yeah, so the state average here in Kentucky is 48 pounds. But like I said earlier,
I was getting 100.
Yeah, we're getting 100 at our. I keep knocking that over. We're getting close to 100 at ours, but that's because of where we're located. See, we're back up to the Parklands, which is 2,000 acres of
a lot of
whatever, and then we are directly across the street. We have a 10-acre field that's heavily planted with wildflowers, and I understand that the farmer does mow it down occasionally. He even sprays occasionally. But most of the year, our bees benefit from that field directly across the street. We have Poplick Creek right there. The Pope, so they have it, within 50 yards, they have water. So our bees kind of have a little nirvana going there for a little honey nirvana.
So your bees just go free roam across the street, come back, all that kind of
They're
stuff?
free range bees.
Sure, free range bees. They go bump, 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 bump. That's right. Yeah, they don't have to travel very far. Now, bees will travel up to 2.5 miles to find food.
That's a long ways.
That's a long ways, right?
So they go shopping at Kroger.
Yeah, they could. Yeah.
All right. I guess in the last one, and then we'll get into the honey itself. How do you extract it? How do you get the honey out of the hive?
Yeah,
so like the process to that.
That's right. So the most common way is by use of a piece of a machine called an extractor. And you take the frames of honey out of the actual hive, and you have to uncap them, and those uncappings become beeswax. Okay, that's where beeswax comes from, and so they kind of go off to the side, and then you have open cells of honey that are now dripping. so you put that in the machine, and the machine spins them, and the centrifugal force throws that honey out on the walls of the machine, and it just falls down by gravity. It just falls down and then comes out. And you can literally hold your bucket underneath it and capture it right there. So that's called an extractor, where you're extracting it. And there's different types of extractors, but they're all based on a centrifugal type process. Some of them are horizontal, some of them are bigger, smaller, but it's all based on centrifugal. Some of them are radial, some of them are not. So you can also press the frames out. But if you press the frames out at that point, you're ruining the honeycomb for the bees. If you use an extractor and you're careful about it, you can extract the honey out, and then you can pull that frame out and literally go put it back in the bee yard, back in the hive.
Like you can reinstall it?
You can reinstall it, and the bees don't have to remake all of that honeycomb all over again.
So when people cut the honeycomb a little bit and put it in the honey,
Sure,
When they
sure. And I could have brought you guys some honeycomb, tonight. I just didn't do it.
But they said that's really, really good. so-
Oh yeah, yeah. Honeycomb is great. I mean, it's a little waxy because it's
Yeah.
beeswax.
Yeah.
Can you
But-
taste that at your store?
Yeah, sure. You can come on by, and we have honeycomb you can taste. So honeycomb is made out of natural beeswax, which is all natural stuff. Okay, there's nothing artificial to it. Paraffin wax
Mhm.
is made out of oil. Okay, so when you burn a paraffin candle, that's why you get all the smoke and everything that you get. When you burn a beeswax candle, you get very little smoke, and it actually puts positive ions, or is it negative? Somebody's got to Google that.
It's
It
positive.
recharges the air. Okay,
It's positive.
it's positive ions. There you go. Positive ions into the air by burning beeswax candles. So, beeswax candles are the bomb. I mean, they're the best way to go. It actually are beneficial if you burn them, and you can the natural.
Wife burns candles. so.
There you go. There you go. So the can you guess who the number one consumer of beeswax is in the world?
Bears.
Bears love honey. Yeah, my little bear, he's always stealing honey. That's why he's winking over here. He's not stoned, by the way. He's winking.
Number one.
He's stealing the honey.
Number one.
Number one consumer of beeswax is
Candles?
Catholic Church
Really?
Wow.
because
I
they
used to
burn
be Catholic.
candles around the
Oh,
world.
Ah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
So they use the beeswax candles.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Well, because they don't want smoke to get around in their churches.
Well, it
I
is.
think
It's,
so.
Yeah, it's less smoky and it puts the ions. It actually recharges the air, and
So does that help with like if they put any kind of fragrance in it and stuff
Sure,
too? Does that make
sure.
it
Yeah, yeah. You
kind
can
of like
you
the
can,
whatever they call it, the ionic airs or whatever?
Right.
Take the certain stuff out of the air. Alrighty, so we got which one we gonna try first here, Joe?
We'll just do the regular.
Is this regular honey?
Regular honey.
We're gonna need
Spoon.
something.
We're gonna need something.
spoons. Yeah,
Spoons.
good old wildflower honey.
Think
So
she got
let's
some up
talk
there.
about honey while
There
we're
you go.
getting ready for this. So
So
you have
what do they consider raw honey?
so raw honey means that it has not been pasteurized,
Okay.
it has not been filtered, and it's basically has had nothing added to it.
Okay. So this is just
Just
straight.
straight from the
when,
hive
when you
honey.
spin it and catch it, that's what you're eating.
It
so
filters
we
out the-
strain it through for like a colander almost to capture the bee parts. Like you don't want to have a head,
Right.
But that's it. Then it goes straight into the bottle.
We ate
Okay.
crickets before, Joe.
We did.
Yeah.
We did.
So you don't want to have a bee head in there and you
Bee
eat
head.
it.
What we have here, this is wildflower honey.
Okay.
And it's important to note that all honey is wildflower honey unless you can, by analysis, prove that 46% of the pollen is from a single source of flower, which is very hard to do. Okay, so in Kentucky, we don't have fields large enough to, remember, it has to be, the bees are going to fly 2.5 miles. So that's over 6,000 acres that a bee could, hit those flowers. So you have to have a large field. And the only places we have large fields like that are out in the northwest, Dakota. Think about that. The clover fields out there.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, they've got them out there. Now you can have like say you've got a big blackberry patch. So maybe you've got 2 acres of blackberries, and you've got beehives that are hitting those blackberries. And as soon as the blackberry flowers are gone, you immediately go out there and you harvest that honey. Okay, there's probably a pretty good chance that you may have 46% or more
Okay.
pollen, if you immediately capture that honey. But you may not. What a lot of beekeepers say is that, well, this is blackberry honey. And, and they either can back it up or they can't, and that's okay. But it's just important to know that all honey is wildflower honey unless you can actually prove it otherwise.
So you can prove it.
Yeah. So,
Okay. So, Joe, you want to do?
Yeah.
While he's taking care of that, I had a question, and I lost it.
There you go.
It went blank.
I'll
I had a
think-
question.
I'll think of it.
You had a question.
I will
It
think
went
of it.
blank. Guess
You
I should
passed
hand
the,
it.
yeah, I was like, I mean, it's just passing, I'll pass the spoons in
Yeah.
that
We need
one.
some more spoons.
Oh,
we
what
only
I was
had
gonna,
3
what I was
in
gonna
here.
ask is,
A little
Put
dusty.
your knives and forks and y'all use that.
what I was gonna ask
can use
is,
knives, I'll let y'all
when
use
have you ever like accidentally gotten a bee in your extractor?
Oh sure, yeah.
Now, are they able to be, or are they able to survive after?
No, you're gonna lose that bee.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, if a bee gets too much honey on her wing, she can't fly, and so sometimes you'll see the other girls licking it off of her, trying to help her out. But if she just gets too much, then she'll be sacrificed.
I was dangerous. I'm getting a knife.
How's that taste?
Oh my gosh,
Oh man.
It's really good.
that is great.
So what's really interesting is if you take our wildflower honey, and you buy one of the imported honeys, or maybe the little less expensive honey, like for $7 I was telling you about, and you taste that honey compared to ours. Ours is much more robust. It is much more flavorful.
Smooth.
Oh, that
It
is.
is.
That
Like,
is
that's
wow,
really good.
that's like wow. Versus the other stuff is kind of like watered down.
Where's some hot donuts or hot biscuits?
Yeah, for real. Hot biscuits. That's like you need to go down there to Honey Depot and get you. That's some good stuff.
Yes, yes, man, that is wow. I give that a 5. Definitely.
5 out of
Want to
5.
give it a 5? That's a
5 out of
5.
five.
That's
Yeah.
a 5.
That
We don't
one
get
is
too
it.
many 5s on this show, by the
I
way.
like that.
It's usually like it's a 4.7.
Man,
Half the time it's a 0.
Some of that stuff we tried.
Some of the stuff. Not all
I
of it.
noticed
some of it.
Jeff the Creed.
Yeah.
Jeff the Creed.
Yeah,
all
Jeff the
right.
Creed are our partners. We might be partnering with some other folks as well here coming up. We're going to be at the Woodford Reserve Festival for Churchill Downs during Derby Week, and they're wanting us possibly to do some honey. So we'll see about that. But we love Jeff the Creed. The relationship we have with them is just awesome. They provide us barrels, and we mix our bourbon honey actually in bourbon barrels as they come off the distillery, out of the distillery.
My brother's got a question. We were just talking about that
The
earlier.
Bee Movie.
Is that in your top 5?
Hey, Jerry Seinfeld's movie, The Bee Movie, when it came out, I mean, it's awesome. I've probably seen it close to 30 times at this point. We show it at the store. The kids love it. And we talk about it in our classes as an example of what not to do. Because The Bee Movie is wrong on so many levels. It's so wrong that we actually give away honey if anybody can come up to within 10% of how many things
my
are wrong in
God.
that movie.
That's bomb too.
That is
That's
so good.
I give it a 10.
That was really good.
10 out
Oh
of 5.
my
Give 10.
gosh, that is good.
So it's got a smooth flavor, doesn't it? Well, yeah.
Yes.
You can taste the
Yeah.
bourbon.
Yeah, you can get
Yeah,
the
you can. I
little,
like that
the
one.
little bourbon punch to
Yeah.
it.
That'd be good on biscuits too.
Oh,
Folks that don't like bourbon like our bourbon honey.
It does
It's
have
really
It
smooth.
does have like a warm feeling to it. Yeah.
that is awesome. Oh my gosh.
That is really
This
really
is
good.
the one I'm looking forward to.
Oh, you just want to try to spice this
He
stuff.
wants
Spicy
the
one,
I like the
Yeah.
spicy stuff.
The Bee Movie is a lot of fun, and it's a great movie, but it is not a real necessarily it doesn't do a lot of favors for the honeybee.
So in the Bee Movie, that's like the part where they're using the smokers. Is that
Ooh,
is
yeah,
that
mess.
is there is the bee's reaction to the smokers in that movie accurate?
You got your beer over there. You might need one.
On that
Is it
spicy.
spicy?
Yeah, he's got the spicy going here.
Is it really spicy? Oh, see, I don't got
boy.
nothing to drink.
Oh boy.
I'm about
No,
to get
it's
a red
got a-
water
it's
real
not.
quick.
Oh man.
Here it comes. See,
It's-
it hits you as it's going down.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm ready. To
Yeah,
try
here it
this.
comes.
He
Oh,
said,
yeah.
"Oh, you got it. You got a lot."
It's not terrible, but it's got a punch to it, man.
Yeah,
that is
it's-
Can you pass that down here?
that
please?
is good. That is awesome. That is
it's
good.
it's,
Get you
it's
some
made
Coke
to be
Zero there?
cooked
Oh,
with
Patrick's
as a
got it, that's
marinade.
Hey, can you get him a
Yes.
cup
Yeah.
Wow.
over there?
Yeah, I got it.
You need something to drink? You all right?
I'm good. That's
You're good.
That's
All right.
It's for
awesome.
me. It's not for.
That is awesome.
What'd you do? Oh,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, boy.
Joel, what goes into this spicy one?
So the bee venom has what's the there's a where's the bottle? I think it says it on the bottle. It's got several spices in it. It's got Carolina Reaper peppers.
Oh yeah.
It's got Trinidad scorpions in it.
Oh.
Yeah, it's the
That's
real
awesome,
thing.
man.
That is awesome. You know what that
It's-
would go
it's
good
the
on
real
right
thing.
now? In my mind, sausage biscuit.
Oh yeah,
Oh, it is a little
boy.
spicy.
Dude, sausage biscuit with that on top
Yeah,
of it.
so we actually have some ghost pepper in there as well, and a little bit of cayenne. So it's the real thing.
Pass that down here. That's
Yeah.
We'll try it.
And
It doesn't hit
habanero.
it first. It comes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not bad.
No,
though.
it's not terrible.
I'm not
but
a,
it's-
I'm not a
not
spice
terrible.
person. I don't like really hot
That's
stuff.
that is really good.
I give that one a 5.
I
And I don't
take
even really like
It's a
spice.
little hot. That's
I
not.
typically like spicy stuff.
So we served that at Thanksgiving. We basted our ham, our spiral ham, with our bee venom, and
Bet you it was
we didn't
great.
tell our guest what it was. Oh, I shouldn't have said that. We had people over for Thanksgiving, so they were family members.
Did you
so
have
maybe
more
it
than
was
8?
all
You're
right.
good.
Yeah, we're all right. We only had 7 adults.
There
so
you
it
go.
was all right.
That's my favorite one. I really like it.
So, but it's really good. Used
It
as
wasn't
a
really that-
marinade, and like I said, I haven't tried it on a.
So
Sausage
like
biscuit.
glazing
I'll
like
try that
ham
tomorrow
or something
morning.
like that. I bet you that's
Oh
probably
yeah,
really
that's
good.
how that's
Yeah.
how we do it. That's how what we use.
Yeah, but that just I don't know why it rang a bell to me. It's like just sausage biscuit. Just-
Well,
His
see,
favorite.
I
It
didn't.
just-
I didn't think it was that spicy. I may have not gotten a lot of. I didn't get like too much.
I thought
of
it had some spice to it, but I thought it was a good spice. Now, if you
Yeah,
sit
it's
there
not
and
like a-
keep eating it, you probably would.
Now, when I come into the store, that's probably what I'll get.
You're gonna buy that one, huh?
Yep.
Oh yeah,
He likes the.
He likes this.
he
I
likes
like the second one though.
the bourbon
the
one.
one,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's
that
fun.
one was pretty good.
So on these next
what's-
ones, what do you all like recommend? I was like toast. Is that what that would be?
Yeah, it's like
Toast
if you
or
like if you're gonna do some toast or a bagel, something like that. Maybe even for fruit, like if some cantaloupe.
oh
Yeah, as a dip.
Could you take like
Sure.
pretzels
apple
and dip it in there?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, an apple, absolutely for an
Yeah.
apple. Just use it as
So
a fruit
this one's
dip.
cookie dough. That one's vanilla. Is
Yeah,
that
and
what
we
it is?
have nanner pudding, we have banana pudding, we have plain vanilla, and we're probably going to be introducing orange and maybe some
Ooh, like an orange dreamsicle.
pomegranate as well.
So could you like
Orange
use
cream, yeah.
So could you like use pretzels and dip it in it? Maybe.
Oh, sure,
Okay.
of course.
Sure, a lot of places do when they do samples. They have pretzel sticks.
Yeah.
Try that. Yeah, so creamed honey is the consistency of
Yeah, just
peanut
use
butter.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, and so you just try to.
Yeah, I'll have to wait
Mm.
till you get done with the knife.
Yeah.
Oh man.
They're pretty sweet though.
Oh man.
Yeah, some of them are really sweet.
That's the vanilla.
Is this the vanilla one?
That is awesome. Yeah, give me some toast.
Oh my, dude, cinnamon roll.
Oh yeah, boy. Man. Heck yeah.
Creamed honey. Man, that is great.
Is this the vanilla one?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
I'll have to get me some as well. This will be my dessert for the night.
That is delicious. Delicious.
Man, that is wonderful.
Ooh.
I give it a 5. You ain't got under a 5 yet,
No,
Joel.
you
no,
I was
none
like,
of them
I don't
have.
know if you expected that one or not. Under a 5?
That's
Haven't
good.
got
man.
under a 5
That's
at all.
good.
I'm gonna say that spicy one for me was probably about an 8 or a 9 out of 5.
He likes
It was.
the
He
spicy
liked the
one.
spice one. I liked the bourbon one,
Yeah.
but I liked the first one. They were like, but I like all of them.
Yeah.
So I ain't really got a favorite yet.
It's interesting. The folks that don't drink, sometimes they'll taste our bourbon because they're curious. I mean, some people don't drink, right? I mean, and so they'll taste our bourbon and they'll say, "I kind of like that," and they'll buy a bottle of it, right? Whereas they wouldn't go home and buy a bottle of bourbon, but they'll buy our bourbon.
It's just like if you cook with it too.
Sure, exactly.
A lot of people are like, "Oh,
And-
I don't drink, but I cook with bourbon."
And the bee venom, the spicy honey, the oftentimes there's people that, well, I don't like spice. Like I'd have a very low tolerance myself, but I like the taste of it. But some people say but I do want to taste it, and they'll taste it. We have a mild one, and they'll taste that mild one, and they'll say, "Oh, I got to have that," And so like, well, great, more power to you.
See, I would put that vanilla one on like a cupcake.
Oh, you're doing
or
the
a
cookie
or
dough, aren't you?
something.
Yeah, boy.
This is the
Did
cookie
you get
dough.
some chocolate chips?
Yep. All right. I got
Got to dig down and get those
Yeah,
chocolate
too.
chips. Yeah.
So, do you all make your own chocolate chips, or do you use like store bought?
Yeah, these are store bought chips. I think they're dairy free store bought chips. Because we had a request for that.
Oh, okay.
so is this stuff?
Joe, I love
Is
it.
this stuff?
Good.
Do y'all
Oh.
do y'all make this or is it sent out?
Oh no, we make it. We make all of. Now
All
we
of
don't
this
make our
stuff?
Amish products. Our jams and jellies are made by the Amish.
But like this, do you
But all of
send
our
the
honey
honey
products-
goes out?
You got
no, we make it all
You
ourselves.
got to get a chocolate chip. The chocolate chip kicks it. Oh man.
Oh my!
Yeah. Give me some ice cream with that.
That's really good.
Yeah, so
Oh,
we've
my.
got some glazes that we're going to introduce here in a little bit that you can pour over ice cream. We don't have those out
Oh,
yet.
man.
but,
Oh my.
Everything you
can
got
taste
here
them.
is phenomenal.
yeah, yeah. Well, we're real
I'll
proud
be
of our
checking your
honey.
store out for sure.
Mom, we're going there.
Hope y'all got one of those cards for frequent flyers.
There you go. Actually, we do. We call it the Sweet Rewards.
there you
card.
There we go. I'm gonna be on that sweet program.
Buy 10, get one free. There you go.
Man, that
was
wonderful. I mean,
yes.
like I said, I got all kinds of ideas. I like apple butter, and I'm always
So-
like, and we go to the mountains and get apple butter while I'm out right now. And I'm like, I need
Man,
an
we've got apple
alternative
butter
to it.
that'll blow you away.
Well, I'll check that out too.
So if we have like a do you have like a suggestion thing that we could like
Suggestion
get,
box?
so we could give like flavor suggestions? and stuff like
Absolutely. Yeah, come on by the store and drop it in the box.
that? All right.
Oh, yeah.
That was
We're gonna be at the store forever.
That was
We open at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning.
awesome, man. Awesome, right
Yeah,
there.
thank
Oh,
you.
yeah.
Well,
Thank you.
definitely. Yeah, it was great, man.
May want to go there before the grocery store.
Yeah.
Well, I tell my
Go there, get it first.
yeah.
I have 3 ladies that serve as my management team at the depot, and they do a great job. And I'm frequently tell them, I said, look, if we don't do anything but educate beekeepers and sell honey, I'm happy. I'm totally happy. And I love our products. We've done a really good job with these products, and it's largely because of the ladies have done such a wonderful job at the store. So, we'll sit around and we'll come up with an idea. And next thing I know, they've actually saying,
Quentin's
here,
getting more of
taste
that
this.
one.
How does this
I gotta
taste?
try again.
Yeah.
Man, I like honey. I like it real.
The bourbon one's my favorite. I think at all.
I'm gonna try the spicy one again.
He's gonna get a bottle of that tomorrow.
Yeah, you know.
Awesome.
We'll all be on a sugar high here in a little bit doing
Yep.
backflips.
So that's a gift certificate for $25.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I didn't know if you guys wanted one or if you wanted
Yeah,
to give
actually,
it away.
what we're
or
gonna
what
do,
you
we're
wanted
Probably
to
give it
do.
away.
We'll
Yeah.
do a
Sure.
giveaway.
And then I brought that book to give away too. So.
We'll do it for if you share the video.
Yeah.
Beekeeping for dummies.
So that's our textbook that we actually use in class. That's what we teach from for the beginning class. The intermediate class is we don't use a text for that, but for the beginning class, this is our textbook. It's an awesome book, and it's widely recognized that most beekeepers agree with 85% in this book, which is really strong because beekeepers are very opinionated. But for a foundational entry-level book, this is really, really good.
It's cool because, like I said, I found stuff out. I kind of knew some stuff tonight, but I found more stuff out that I didn't know.
Oh, I
so.
found all kinds of stuff.
Now
out.
I have
mean, that's
I have
just-
a question about the Bee movie. If you could answer it.
He's still pondering over.
Back to
Fun
Barry at the
movie.
bee movie, yeah.
So, on the scene where they're like doing like the smoker stuff, is that actually how you'd say a bee would react? They'd like try and cover their face to where they couldn't inhale the smoke.
Yes, that's exactly what they do.
I mean, what would you do?
Yeah.
I mean, I try and
Yeah.
get
Try
away
and get
from
smoked
it.
out.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I ain't got a clue what you're all talking about because I ain't never seen the
The
movie.
bee movie.
Oh
Oh
my
my! You
goodness.
never
No.
seen the bee movie?
you know, the
You gotta
bee
watch
movie's
that
a
with
lot
the
of
boy,
fun. You
man.
need to watch. He had it up on the screen earlier tonight.
Yeah, the bee movie.
It's a lot of fun. You can come over to the store and we'll show it. We'll watch it together. It's a lot of fun.
Probably like it.
Do you want to do the